Committee on Justice and Judiciary. This is meeting number 4 for the interim, and would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Senator Schickel, Senator Webb, Senator Westerfield, Representative Cantrell, Representative Decker, Representative Elliott, Representative Hatton, Representative Nemus, Senator McDaniel, Representative Petrie, Representative Reed, Representative Massey, Co-Chair Fisher, Chair Carroll.
Here. We do not have a quorum, so we will hold up on approving the minutes from the September 21st meeting. This morning, we'll be hearing from the Department of Corrections regarding the various budget initiatives enacted during the past session. And I would ask folks here from the Department of Corrections, please come forward. And if you all would, please introduce yourselves for the record, and you will have the floor. Thank you all for being here this morning.
Good morning. We'd like to thank you for inviting us today to provide you with some updates from the previous budget session on both budget and our capital construction projects with the Department of Corrections. I'm Rebecca Norton. I'm the Director of the Office of Financial Management in the Justice Cabinet. I also have with me the staff assistant in the Office of Financial Management in the Secretary's office, as well as Mike McKinney and Tanya Hunter, who are the Director and Assistant Director of the Division of Administrative Services with the Department of Corrections. They are the subject matter experts, so I'm probably going to turn the rest of the time over to them. But again, we just want to thank you for the invitation to discuss these projects with you. We're especially excited to update you on capital construction. We have the opportunity this biennium to do some large projects as well as get to work on some of the deferred maintenance that we've been unable to do in previous years. So we're looking forward to that, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I am Mike McKinney. I am the Director of Administrative Services for the Department of Corrections. Kind of want to start off a little bit talking about our capital budget. We are very happy to start this conversation with the fact that we received a good bid on our Little Sandy expansion last week. We are going to accept that bid. We are looking to start the construction phase of that project within the next 30 days. So we're very excited that we've moved that far in that process. Another one of our big projects that we were given in this capital budget was our medical facility that's going to be built on grounds at Blackburn Correctional Complex. That project is kind of at the end of the design phase. We are hoping to wrap that up very soon, and it's our projection at this point in time that we're going to start construction in January on that project. So both of those projects are moving along very nicely at this point in time. We were very fortunate to have been given $44 million for our miscellaneous maintenance pool. Like Ms. Norton said, we're excited and grateful to get that money. For years, I think the department has been operating in a kind of a reactionary process when it comes to repairing our grounds and our facilities and things that it needed. This $44 million really gives us the opportunity to be proactive and fix things that we've needed to fix for many, many years. So we're very excited to have that. We're in the process of setting up projects for that. We're doing a review of all of our needs. Like I said, we've lived many years in that reactionary process. So now we want to do everything we can with this $44 million and address the critical needs that we have. And so we felt it was important to do that review and kind of get out of that reactionary mindset that we've been in. So we've got a lot of HVAC issues. We've got a lot of re-roofs that need to be done. We've got a 32-year-old facility at Eastern Kentucky Correctional Complex that needs a lot of work done to it, and we're excited to be able to move forward and do some of those things there. Some of our other line item projects that we had are currently in active procurement status. Those include the water tower maintenance and the penitentiary fencing. So those are currently out in procurement status. As far as moving on past the Capitol, we were given some money to do some vehicle purchases. We were given money to purchase new vehicles for probation and parole and jail inspectors. We've recently placed an order for 24 vehicles for our probation and parole offices, and 7 vehicles for our jail inspectors. These were all done through Kentucky Master Agreements. Orders have been placed. I think we have an ETA on delivery for the probation and parole vehicles of December. Those come in just a little higher than expected, but those 24 vehicles do meet the direct needs that we have at this point in time. We do not have an ETA at this time on jail inspector vehicles, but that order is currently being placed and hope to have those early in 2023. We were also given a $4 increase in our county jail per diem. Based on all of our projections and trends that we're seeing, those are trends that we projected in our budget request. So at this time, we do not have any issues with funding the current trend and the current projection that we have for that $4. So we feel like we've got the money to cover that. And that kind of wraps up kind of my spiel as far as talking about the budget request and the things that we were given in addition. If y'all have any questions.
Thank you. Past all the maintenance that needs to be done, do you all have a long-term plan? What are the needs? I know as we move towards vocational programs within the prisons, do you all have a long-term plan with most of the facilities on expanding those programs, or how many of those facilities do we have existing structures that are up to date and are functioning effectively?
That's been a part of our process for the $44 million miscellaneous maintenance pool funds. We really wanted to take time and get a good analysis of what is needed at each of our facilities. So we've spent a lot of time. We've had some consultants come in and kind of help us prioritize. Like we said, we want to spend that $44 million on our critical needs, but at the same time, we want to kind of develop our plan of what we do need, because we're getting ready to work on our next maintenance plan. It will work on it for next year, for our next budget cycle. So we're taking the time necessary to review what we need in at each of our facilities and try to give everybody the best plan we can come up with.
In addressing staffing issues, I know that's been a problem. Are you all still using probation and parole officers to fill in where you have weak spots? And
Yes.
Do you all anticipate that stopping at any point? Is it with the pay increases? Is that helping any? Is staffing coming up any, or is that still?
We're actively recruiting for our staffing. We are still using probation parole officers at several facilities. I do know that a couple of facilities have improved enough to maybe not have to need that. They still have staffing issues. I don't want to make it sound like we don't still have vacancy issues at some of our institutions, but that is helping. But we're constantly working on plans and new methods to try to draw in people, and we're still have vacancy issues, but we're constantly working on it.
The secretary spoke the other day on some of the juvenile facilities, and they are he has a plan where I guess it's the facilities where they're having the most struggles. They're using some of the funds allocated for staffing to provide raises, significant raises for those places. Have you all implemented any plans like that because of the short staffing and some of the savings due to that? Have you used that funding to supplement other position, not other positions, but existing positions?
So in corrections, and I'm sure they will correct me if I get any of these numbers wrong, but with corrections, they had made an effort previous this year to increase the locality pay in some of the facilities in order to try and recruit in those hard to recruit locations. And they had also
That's actually every facility.
Oh, every facility, I'm sorry. And they had also increased the shift differential pay to try to fill some of those harder to fill shifts on the weekends and at night. And so where we brought up juvenile justice was actually to the level that corrections was at on shift differential and the locality pay.
I see. Thank you. And I think that's the language that Secretary used also. Senator Schickel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you all for being here today. This is a topic that interests me a lot. I do have a few questions. First is a clarification just for my own education. The juvenile, the salaries for the people working at our secure juvenile facilities, are they under you or not? Or is that a different pot of money?
Are they under corrections?
Yes. I mean, are they under your budget?
No, they have a separate budget. The Department of Juvenile Justice and Department of Corrections, those are separated.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Tell me about you mentioned the fence at Eddyville. Well, what are the plans for the fence? What are we paying for?
So that's currently in active procurement status. I may have the exact details here. I know we're doing some fencing there. I'm not exactly sure of what they're actually doing. I do know the pricing and
okay,
and
I'd be interested in that.
We can.
Are
we can
the
definitely
guard
get you
towers
information
at
for that.
Eddyville being manned at the present time?
I'm not aware of that right now, sir. But we'll take note of that and can get you an answer.
Thank you. And lastly, I want to ask about the death chamber at Eddyville. I'm going to be talking to some of our attorney general candidates. As you know, we have a death penalty in Kentucky. It's been a long time since it's been used. It's my hope that we can start using it again and that we'll have an attorney general elected that will start pursuing that. As you know, that protocol is under the Commissioner of Corrections. Other than the drug cocktail, is there any deficiency in the death chamber that will be delaying executions?
I don't have that answer right now, but I would be happy to get that answer for you.
Thank you. I'd like to have that.
Yes.
Do you all have any data related to inmate populations, the current cost per inmate with all the cost increases that we've seen due to inflation? And I'm sure that number has risen. Do you all have any updates on that?
I don't have the exact number with me, but we do have that data, and I can get that data for you.
Please. Okay, we've talked about the facilities. As far as being past, are we past the critical issues with staffing and safety concerns within each facility? Are we, I mean, I know it's nowhere close to where it needs to be and where it should be, but are we past the crisis time in most of these facilities, or are there still major concerns about safety? I mean, we heard about with DJJ in the Louisville facility and all the issues that we've had there, and I know you all are very sensitive to those issues throughout the Commonwealth. What perception is there from your seats?
We still have some vacancy issues that are probably in the critical status. We have two institutions at this point in time that, in order to decrease that critical nature, the penitentiary and Green River Correctional Complex, where we've actually closed dorms there in order to not need as many staff in those institutions. So we've moved some of that inmate population to institutions where we have a better vacancy rate in order to address some of those issues. But we do have plans in place to try to make that less than what it could be.
And budget-wise, what do you all see, what do you all anticipate for the next budget session being the priorities and where the focus will be as far as budget?
We are currently working on that plan. I
So
don't
no-
have a list of those today,
Okay.
but we're working on that plan, and we'd be happy to kind of get you a current narrative of what that may look like.
Any other questions? Senator Schickel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Getting back to the death chamber, from a budgetary standpoint, I'm just thinking maybe I didn't explain myself thoroughly before. I want to know from a budgetary standpoint, maybe it's something you need to be working on for next year, other than the drug cocktail, if executions become legal, well, they are legal now, they're delayed. If the delay is lifted by the courts, I want to make sure that there's no other deficiencies that may be challenged and because of budgetary constraints. I want to make sure that gets addressed. Am I clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
During the when the secretary testified on DJJ, the conversation was had about the population of juveniles that are detained. As we in Kentucky, we have less and less of a stomach to detain or imprison anyone, it seems. So as a result of that, the population that remains, whether it be juveniles that are detained or held in facilities or in our prisons, are more violent offenders, which can create some unique problems for staffing. And as we are already short-staffed, and I can see that population that remains within the prisons as being more violent than 10, 20 years ago, because we just seem to have an open-door policy and everybody's a victim and we let everybody out of prison and just to reoffend. The highest murder rates, Senator Schickel, correct me if I'm wrong, in almost every state. And in this society, it seems that violence has become a norm, and the media glorifies it and it's accepted, and fighting the police and attacking the police and anyone in authority is just seems to be okay these days. And that's the atmosphere that we have set within our country at this point, unfortunately. But how do we address that? Do you all have discussions about that and in considering budgeting and increasing the safety protocol and equipment and all of that? Because there is no doubt that the population is going to become more and more violent as time goes by, and we let everybody, the lesser offenders will be out on the streets. Do you all have discussions about that? Is it something that DOC plans for?
Security concerns in our institutions are top priority when we talk about our budgetary needs. The safety of our staff are definitely top of the agenda when we talk about budgetary needs and what we need. We've worked hard over the last couple of years to upgrade equipment, especially when staffing is low. We've worked to upgrade equipment maybe to help with some of those staffing issues. So that is always in our discussion. Yes, sir.
Does that, I mean, has that been noticed within the facilities that the incidents, and you all may not be able to answer this, we probably needed some folks from other areas of DOC to answer some of these questions, but it is as the budgetary process, and has that been raised up any notches into where it is more of a concern than it was in the past because of the population being imprisoned?
I think security concerns have always been on our agenda regardless of vacancy rates or population numbers.
I was just going to add as well, for example, corrections this year purchased body scanners, and you have those in place. Are they in all of the facilities?
We've put body scanners at every institution. We've upgraded metal detectors. We have upgraded various equipment. Security camera systems have all been upgraded across the state. When you may be low on staff, you may still have a camera to where you can see things. It kind of makes things a little easier. So we've worked really hard to upgrade those systems at every institution that we have.
Okay. Was there a shortfall in budget that came under the NGE this past fiscal year?
No, sir.
So you all were good
Yes.
for that year?
Yes.
Okay. Is that more of a sign of federal dollars that came down and the budget that we gave you all, or is it inmate decline, population decline?
I think post-COVID and the inmate population decrease was a big part of that. But we've managed to function. We haven't had to ask for NGE in the last few years, so that's been different for us. But we have been able to focus on a lot of that equipment needs because of some of that too. So that has kind of helped us out, meeting some of those upgrades that we've needed for that.
Okay. So from what you all have said, really the staffing seems to be the biggest priority right now. I mean, I've been allocated funds to help out in a lot of areas, but
Yes.
that's still the most pressing issue.
And-
Accurate?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Senator Schickel.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking up stuff. And this might, budget people might know this, is like the chairman said, we're asking you questions that probably the commissioner should be answering, but you might, I'm really concerned about 12-hour shifts, and I know that they were on 12-hour shifts for quite a while. In my opinion, that's just too long. What's the status of that? Do you have any idea? Because I know that involves overtime.
I do know that all of our facilities except two are still on 12-hour shifts. Now, I don't know the details behind some of those, but I do know.
Well, a lot of times the employees will push for 12-hour shifts, and it's a big mistake because of the fatigue factor, especially in a correctional facility. And so it takes some leadership to get them off of that. But that's the standard shift now, is a 12-hour shift.
At most of our institutions, yes, sir.
I'd like some data on that too, especially on the maximum security places, Eddyville and those ones. Thank you.
Getting back to budget issues, from Big Sandy, the money that was budgeted for that project, with the bid that you all accepted, is it pretty close to what was budgeted, or do you all expect overruns with? And I know in some areas building materials are starting to come down a little bit, or at least level off maybe. So how is that looking at this point with that bid being accepted?
That bid came in about 1% over anticipated, which we were very shocked with, but very happy with. So that's why I kind of started with that. Was very good news for us that we've got that. But we have accepted that bid and are very fortunate, we believe, to have had that 1% overage in comparison to what it could have been.
Okay. What about the vehicles? And I'm assuming all these are gas-powered vehicles that we bought?
They are.
Okay. Is there any pressure to start utilizing at least hybrid vehicles that's coming down? Did you all price those out, or?
I didn't price those out. I don't think we've got many of those on our state contracts. We may have a couple, but most of the vehicles we needed, especially for probation and parole, were needed to be able to transport offenders. So I had to get a big vehicle that was big enough to set up to be able to do that. So it's hard to get a battery a vehicle that does that. So.
And what the cost to house an inmate for a year wasn't that somewhere around 20,000? Was that the past rate? Senator Schickel, do you remember that? We've talked about that before.
Yeah, a lot of that's on how you figure it and who's figuring, but that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I'm curious to see over the past 3 to 5 years how how that has changed and as we move forward.
We can definitely get you that info.
Okay,
I
that
don't
would
have it
help.
today, but
Yeah,
I
that
can
would
definitely
help
get
as
that for
budget
you.
issues come up. Okay, if there are no other questions, that's all I can think of at this point.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you all for being here today. Appreciate all your work and look forward to communicating with you in the future with the needs, and hopefully things are starting to level out with the prison facilities if we can just get some folks hired. And from what I'm seeing, it's not getting a whole lot better, but just at a local level, I know with my organization, we're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel, but we had to pay to get to that light, and I'm sure everybody is having to do that. And I know as a state it's difficult to do that, but that's the reality of where we are, and we cannot afford, as we have seen in the juvenile facility in Louisville, to let things get completely out of control, and we need to make it a priority. So I would ask you all, and I know with Secretary Harvey, it's on his mind that if there are prisons that get to that point where it becomes a risk to the community, that you all would come to us, whether it be facilities, whether it be some funding for staffing, not let it get to where it did in Louisville and put community at risk and put employees at risk. But I know Secretary Harvey is very sensitive to that at this point. But that's all I have. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate the information. If there are no other questions, comments, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.